Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we review the Horus Heresy Primarch Series novel, Mortarion the Pale King, by author David Annandale. As always with reviews, it will be spoiler free, followed by a little spoiler reaction talk at the end for those who have already read it. One or two standout moments I'd like to discuss. But as usual, we'll begin by checking out the synopsis off the back of the book. So with that said, let's just jump straight in. Once, the Galaspar system suffered under the cruel regime of the Order. Billions of people toiled endlessly to enrich their masters, enduring short lives of poverty, squalor and fear. But Galaspar's sins did not go unnoticed by the Imperium, and so death itself sentenced the Order to annihilation. Mortarion, newly uplifted to commander of the Death Guard, descended upon the world, and with him came a slaughter of untold proportions. The sheer brutality of Mortarion's campaign left the Imperium appalled. Seeking to understand its horrors, two noble Primarchs have come to Galaspar, summoning their brother to account for his actions. But the Pale King brooks no challenge to his methods, for when the scythe falls, it reaps a gruesome toll. Okay, I have to say, as I've said before, when it comes to Primarchs, for me Mortarion has always been one of the few I've struggled to get to grips with. Unlike Angron, who had a valid reason to bear a grudge against his father, for me Mortarion not so much. And as a result his reasoning felt a little immature, turning his fall to heresy from tragic to more petulant. And so considering this, I've been really looking forward to this Primarch novel in particular, hoping that in seeing more of Mortarion in his earlier years, I'd gain a greater understanding and appreciation of him. Now, as the synopsis summed up, this story finds Mortarion near the very beginning of his role as a Primarch, the newly named Death Guard Legion embarking on their great crusade beneath their Primarch. And as it says, it revolves around the events of Mortarion's conquest of Galaspar. Now, despite being early on in Mortarion's Primarch journey, there aren't any real surprises in regards to his personality or actions. This Mortarion feels like Mortarion. If you was to read a random passage of his dialogue or actions, this could be the Mortarion of the Heresy or Crusade just as easily. And far from being a bad thing, I actually think it perfectly represents the Death Lord in itself. Mortarion is so stubborn and embittered that he's always been the same way. You don't see such a wide-ranging emotional journey as you may from other brothers, such as Magnus the Red for example. Mortarion is unshakable and consistent, and in many ways that's exactly what this story represents, the unshakable grim determination he embodies. Now, I won't reveal who those noble brothers are that make an appearance in this, but it wasn't quite who I was expecting. Upon reflection, maybe I should have, but when I saw who it was, my eyebrows immediately lifted at the prospect of it, seeing an early Mortarion interacting with these brothers. As you know, these are the kind of moments I love the most, when we get that pure interaction between Primarchs. Now, they're not the longest of scenes in the world, and I would have loved to have seen some more, but the interplay comes off well, with some interesting insights into particular relationships, with one of the Primarchs really coming across particularly well for me. His character definitely a standout. Now that said, again, Mortarion never felt like he was new to these relationships and interactions, so I personally didn't come away feeling like I was really learning something new here, at least in regards to Mortarion's personality. However, I thoroughly enjoyed seeing these interactions nonetheless. It definitely made me want to see a Mortarion in a more relaxed state, to see what kind of a Primarch he is when he doesn't feel quite so combative. Sure, this is Great Crusade era, but in feeling judged, you still get that anger and defiancy that Mortarion always has. I'd really love to get a short story of Mortarion in between campaigns. Maybe just taking a day to speak with a brother without that edge. One where he wouldn't feel their judgment behind their eyes. One who perhaps couldn't be labelled as noble. Now, seeing as the essence of the plot revolves around Galaspar, obviously most of the story is spent showing us those events. And I have to say, I absolutely loved it. From the very start of the campaign to the end, it feels like a race against time, and this really helped it to keep that level of tension. Mortarion and the Death Guard are absolute wrecking balls, the Primarch in particular. You want to see a Mortarion in his prime? Well then look no further. He is an absolute beast with a couple of standout moments, and the whole thing really will help you gain another notch of respect for the Death Guard Legion of old. They really will push through anything regardless of the sacrifice. Honestly, I enjoyed the battle so much I was grinning from ear to ear at the Death Guard's ruthlessness, which, okay, probably wasn't the intention, but it goes to show how well the Death Guard come across in this one. If I had to say a weak part of the story, then perhaps that's it. I didn't really come away feeling Mortarion's brutality was anything shocking for the universe that we all know and love. The atrocities of the enemy was made clear and apparent from the very start, so I never really felt sorry for them. In a universe where we have Conrad and Angron running around, Mortarion's excessive brutality didn't really feel that excessive. But maybe that's the point here. We're used to the brutality a Mortarion-led Death Guard campaign will bring. The Imperium at this point wasn't. And this is the tale of them coming to terms with it. Overall, there's no real revelations into Mortarion, and no Primarch interactions that blew me away or gave me those goosebumps. But I did love what we got, and I have to say this is probably my favourite Death Guard read to date. Again, keeping in mind Mortarion is one of the Primarchs I feel I know the least, and certainly not one of the ones I feel most attached to. When he was going to town on the enemy, I absolutely had a smile on my face, and thoroughly enjoyed him brutally wading through the enemy. So overall for me, this is probably a 3 or a 4 out of 5 depending on what your expectations are going in. If you're expecting major revelations into Mortarion, you may be a little disappointed and closer to the 3. If you're simply looking for a good Primarch tale, then this is absolutely it, and you would easily give it a 4 out of 5. There's nothing spine-tingling or goosebump-raising, but it is thoroughly enjoyable. For me, I enjoyed watching Mortarion and the Death Guard go to war so much, I lean closer to the 4 even without those major revelations I was hoping for. But that's it for the spoiler-free review. Now a little spoiler reaction talk for some of the talking points for me. And again, this is for those that have already read it. Otherwise, it's really not going to make much sense. Okay, so first up, the 2 brothers who came to judge Mortarion was none other than Sanguinius and Horus. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but this was a surprise to me. That noble tease had me thinking more maybe Rogel and Guilliman, which I would have absolutely loved to see. But either way, it's always great to get more Great Crusade Horus. And Horus was that standout character for me here. I really felt the author did a great job bringing that noble Horus of old to life. I could see and felt why this Lupercal was so respected by his brothers. Why it was him that would go on to be War Master and not Sanguinius. That moment in their final conversation as they are about to judge Mortarion, and Mortarion wonders aloud if they do understand. But Horus just cuts him off. No, that is our question. I was visibly taken aback there. In that one statement, it was like, this is Horus. He asserted his authority over all of them, right then and there, in that one sentence. And it just leapt off the page. And it's worth remembering that this is long before he is War Master. He just flipped it on in one sentence. Definitely something I want to discuss in depth in the future. It really had me coming away that Horus was always destined to be the War Master. It was a great comparison to have with him alongside Sanguinius. And in speaking of the angel, it was quite interesting to see the disregard that Mortarion harboured for Sanguinius. The angel, who is supposed to be beloved by all, really didn't have that feeling coming from his brother. And I was quite surprised in reading that. Now, another thing I really loved was Mortarion leaping from tank to tank, just hacking them to pieces. It felt like a Mortarion I hadn't seen in a long time, and I really enjoyed the moment. Like I said in the review, the whole campaign was great for me. From the very outset, that drive to the planet with the sole intention of literally crashing his flagship into its side. How could that not endear you to him and the Legion? And in thinking about it, maybe the reason I enjoyed this book quite so much is that it had a very similar feel to the novel Shroud of Night, which I've spoken about before on the channel. There we followed an Alpha Legion warband racing against the clock, and here we followed the Death Guard Legion in their battle against time. Two very different stories, but with a similar overall feel. And I think it's that racing against the clock that really adds the dramatic tension to the story. Maybe giving a good explanation on why I came away from both stories with such a positive feeling. Again, by the time that the Death Guard was shooting down the enemy attempting to surrender at the end, I had spent so long behind the Death Guard willing them on, I just wanted them to win. At the end of the day, for me, it was just great seeing the Death Guard Legion as they used to be, as they were supposed to be in their glory. Before we begin to get too far down the Nurgle rabbit hole. Yes, we got that tease here, but it was only a small part of the story, and on the whole didn't really change anything. But as always everyone, what did you think? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy the Mortarion Primarch novel as much as me? Or perhaps were you hoping to get more revelations? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.